This is, hard to kind of take in its entirety, I imagine, for myself and for other viewers. I just want to ask you one more quick question about this, what you call the smoking gun data. How many of these 733 were conservative and liberal, according to your metrics? I just want to get a sense of the sample size we're talking about.
I don't have those numbers right in front of me at this point, but we had a very diverse group. So very, very roughly, we had about 1/3 liberals, about 1/3 conservatives. Then we had a smaller group that called themselves moderates, and a smaller group still that called themselves other. I don't have the exact numbers here, but eventually, of course, we'll write all of this up and we'll release lots and lots of details. But we have, in this world there are good problems and bad problems. We have a good problem. We have so much data. What we accomplished in a very short time, it dwarfs what we've done in previous monitoring projects, and this project tells me basically two things. It tells me, yes, it is possible to do large-scale monitoring of these companies, to do to them what they do to us 24 hours a day. We can be monitoring year-round on a very, very large scale pretty much everything that they are showing to users, that they're telling users through their personal assistant devices. And we can be looking 24 hours a day. We can be looking for manipulations, for bias, for shenanigans of all sorts. And of course, this project also tells me that if we are detecting any kinds of irregularities, and then we're exposing those irregularities, we can get these companies to back down. We can get them to stop. This is without laws or regulations. This is just using tech, good tech, to fight bad tech. And laws and regulations move very, very slowly. Tech moves literally at the speed of light. How are you going to, trying to think ahead to the future, not just Google, but to the next Google and the one after that? How are you going to protect humanity, democracy, free speech from companies like Google, whether they're well-intentioned or whether they're truly evil? How are you going to protect humanity? You do it with monitoring systems, because monitoring is tech, and it can keep up with whatever new technologies are emerging. It can keep up with those technologies, and on an ongoing basis, and I mean 24 hours a day, it can protect us from manipulation, from, in effect, undermining democracy, and over time, even undermining human autonomy. One of the disturbing things that leaked out of Google in 2018 was an 8-minute video called The Selfish Ledger. This was never meant to leave that company. It talks about the power that Google has to re-engineer humanity. To re-engineer humanity. And this video also includes the phrase company values. To re-engineer humanity in a way that reflects company values. In effect, they're acknowledging that the kind of thing we're finding is real, it's deliberate, it's strategic. They're acknowledging a kind of utopian thinking. Maybe they know better. But how would the rest of the people in the world, the people outside of Google, how would they feel? How would they weigh in on this kind of possibility, or this kind of plan, these kinds of actions? How would the rest of the world weigh in? I really don't think people around the world would welcome this, would welcome a private company in the United States exercising the power it has to rig elections, to re-engineer humanity according to company values. I mean, I think it's outrageous. We need transparency. Obviously, that there are all kinds of ways we might get more transparency. Various countries have tried and so far failed. But most important, we need to be protected from these manipulations. And I know now for sure, because of what's happened with our current monitoring system, I know we can be protected by having large-scale permanent monitoring systems in place, and not just in the US, but in countries around the world. I know that not only that we can do it, I know that we must do it. I don't think this is optional anymore for humanity. I think that the technological elite is now in control, whether you know it or not. They're now in control of our elections. I know of a way to stop them. I did stop them. At least with one manipulation, it appears that I did stop them. By the way, a whistleblower, a leak from the company, subpoenaed documents, court discovery, any number of different methods could someday confirm that what happened on the night of Thursday, October 29th, really happened the way I am speculating. We might actually get confirmation of that at some point, that Google became aware of the monitoring, they became concerned, they turned off a blatant manipulation, which is, I'm told, probably a violation of campaign finance laws, which is a felony that can be punished with fines or even prison time.
Well, and of course, it's also possible that there was some sort of rogue actor within Google who was partisan, who would have been involved in something like this. I don't presume to speculate, but I'm sure a lot of our viewers right now are very curious. Do you have any estimate of that particular observation of this homepage, basically voting encouragement? How many votes could that have shifted based on your experience or your estimates?
I haven't done those calculations yet, but I can tell you a couple of things. Number one, that homepage is seen in the United States 500 million times a day. If that kind of reminder was being used systematically over a period of time, it affected more than who voted on election day. It affected who sent in mail-in votes. It affected who registered to vote. Imagine that kind of targeted messaging continuing for a long period. It can shift a lot of votes, directly by getting someone to vote, and then indirectly by getting more and more people with one particular political orientation to register to vote. So, those are calculations that we know how to do. At some point, I will do them. I certainly did not expect to find this targeted messaging on Google's homepage. It might also be on Facebook's homepage. We've preserved thousands of those homepages. We know who they went to. We know the demographics of the people that they went to. So we'll be able to look into that as well. But the point is, I wasn't expecting this. We have so much data. We have an incredible wealth of data that we're going to find all kinds of things that, who knew, things that we just didn't expect. YouTube sequences. Imagine the power that YouTube sequences have over opinions and votes, because 70% now of the videos that people watch on YouTube around the world, 70% are suggested by YouTube's Up Next algorithm. People sit there letting YouTube, which is part of Google, feed them videos. Imagine the power that a sequence of videos has to shift the thinking of someone who's vulnerable, of someone who's undecided, someone who's trying to make up their mind about something. This is a way to take people down rabbit holes. And there are documented cases now of individuals who have turned to right-wing extremism or Islamic extremism because of a sequence of videos they saw on YouTube. Well, we've done something no one's ever done. We have recorded, in the days before a political election, we have recorded thousands of YouTube sequences, and again, we know the demographics of the people that were watching these sequences. Just to show you that we're not dreaming here. One of the videos that leaked from Google in 2018 was a 2-minute video in which the CEO of YouTube, her name is Susan Wojcicki, the CEO of YouTube is talking to her staff, or so it appears, and she's explaining that they're just not going to let any of this fake news, affect our YouTube users anymore. So they're modifying the up next algorithm to elevate, to push up content that they think is valid content and to demote content that they think is not. So we're talking about, again, deliberate efforts within the company to engineer the kind of content that people can see and that people cannot see. And that second category, content people cannot see, that's very, very dangerous. Some people would call that censorship, but what's truly dangerous about it is you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what's being suppressed because you can't see it. So we know that there have been deliberate efforts within the company to alter the YouTube up next algorithm, obviously according to, once again, there's that phrase, company values. I mean, how would outsiders have made judgments about which videos people should be able to see or not see? How would people of different political orientations have made those decisions? What exactly was the process they used to make those decisions? See, this is unacceptable. We cannot have private companies that are not accountable to the public deciding what 3 billion people around the world can see and cannot see. And by the way, that number by 2022 will exceed 4 billion people. This cannot be allowed to continue.
I mean, we are in absolutely unprecedented times, of course, in terms of the raw ability of, as you said, private corporations to control information. Absolutely. How soon can we expect to get some results from your work? That's the first question. And the second question is, I imagine there's viewers that are watching who might want to help you do some of that processing if you're looking for people to do that. Because, as you said, who knows what could be found in these data?
Unfortunately, we can't really accept volunteers, helpers. We would love to, because we get people offering every single day, and I'm sure they're wonderful people and they're very sincere in wanting to help us. But the problem is that if someone volunteers, we don't know whether they have some connection with the big tech companies. Because Google not only employs 100,000 people, it also employs, that we know of, more than 10,000 outside contractors, just regular old people for all kinds of purposes. And if I were Google and Dr. Epstein was looking for volunteers to analyze data, I would send him, I'd be very generous. I would send him dozens and dozens of volunteers. And you see, we have no way of distinguishing, a good volunteer from a bad volunteer. So we have to take all kinds of precautions. We find our people, through networking, and we're extremely, extremely cautious. We do background checks. We have people sign very strict NDAs. We're very cautious. I saw Dershowitz give a talk once in which he said there's a fine line between paranoia, which is a bad thing, and caution, which is a good thing. We're very, very cautious. You asked when we're going to release lots and lots of results. I can't even give you a date on that because, frankly, we are overwhelmed, and in a good way, we're overwhelmed with how much information we were able to preserve. We have to invent new ways of analyzing this kind of data. Literally, just as we've had to invent, new ways to study online manipulations since 2013, we had to invent how to set up a monitoring system that allows us to look over the shoulders of real computer users. That took us about 10 months back in 2016. We started in January, and we're still figuring that out. Obviously, we're getting better. We're getting better at doing what we're doing. But in my mind, all of these projects and the numbers, they're not going to really solve any problems. I don't think so. What we have done, and the real value in what we've done, is to show what's possible. You can think of these projects as proofs of concept. We are showing that it is possible to look very, very carefully at what these companies are showing people, that it can be done on a very, very large scale. It could be set up permanently in all 50 states. It could be collecting massive amounts of data, and the data could be analyzed. It's possible. It can be done in real time using algorithms. You see, in other words, we can do the same kind of thing that Google does. Again, using good tech to fight bad tech. We can do large-scale monitoring. It can be set up so that it is permanent and constantly looking for irregularities, and then reporting them, exposing them. And I think that when this happens, I think this is not an option for humanity. I think it's a necessity. It's a requirement. It must be done. And when this happens, think about it. Think about what these companies, how they'll react. I mean, they wouldn't dare to try rigging an election. They wouldn't dare to try re-engineering humanity. This is the way to protect ourselves. It's by setting up monitoring systems that detect and expose threats to our freedom.
Dr. Robert Epstein, such a pleasure to speak with you again.
It's always a pleasure. Anytime.